Very quickly, I'm going to be talking, usually when I'm here, I'm talking about the results of the Global Sentiment Survey. The Global Sentiment Survey that I run has one obligatory question: what will be hot this year in learning and development? Okay, there is no surprise that the answer to the question, what will be hot this year in learning and development, is AI. No surprise. So rather than focusing on the survey, I'm focusing on what's happening with AI. I want to look at two things. I want to look at where we are with AI now, and then I want to look at what's going to happen, I think, in 2024. So Armen was just talking about the big picture, the next decade. I'm talking about the next 12 months. What do I think is going to happen? I'm going to firstly give you a framework for thinking about the future. Then I'm going to talk about where L&D is now. Then I'm going to talk about three things that L&D will be doing, and you'll hear a lot of talk about this year, and you should focus on. Okay, firstly, my background. There's a trend at the moment. Everyone starts by showing the first computer they used. I started work as a computer programmer in 1981. I've got people laughing down here. This was my computer. How old is this computer? This computer, a PDP-11, is now in the Museum of Computing in England. That's how old it is. That's how old I am. But the advantage is this. I have chaired the Learning Technologies Conference in London for 25 years. It's like this conference, okay? And I've seen people on stage every year say, this thing is going to change the world. Next year, somebody else comes along. No, this thing is going to change the world. I'm very cynical about the whole thing. But actually, AI is going to change the world. I have nothing to sell you. I just want you to know this because I care about L&D. There are three things in that lifetime that I've seen that have changed us. One, personal computing. Two, the birth of the World Wide Web. And three, AI. It's going to transform what we do. We need to be ready for it. Okay. I've been doing a lot of talking around the world around AI and L&D. It doesn't matter where you are. You can be in Las Vegas, you can be in Kuala Lumpur, you can be in Prague. I ask people this question: how do you feel about it? Everybody, even if their first language isn't English, has one word they always use. I just feel overwhelmed. It's just too much happening. I feel like I'm underwater. I can't get up my head above water. What I want to do is to try to provide some clarity about where we are, where we're going, and give you a sense of where to go and what to do next. I want to push away the overwhelm. Got three things to talk about. Firstly, revolution. Secondly, what we're doing at the moment. And thirdly, what I think is coming this year. I'm talking quite fast. I'm sorry. I do that anyway. I'm sorry I'm doing it in English. Thank you for listening to me in English. You will be able to download the slides at the end with the QR code. So if it goes too fast, you can get a recap. You can also follow me on LinkedIn with the QR code. Plus, there are a whole bunch of resources slides at the end. There are about 10 slides of resources. So download the slides. It'll be something for you in the future. Don't worry about this now. There's a big QR code at the end. It'll be much easier. Okay. People say AI is a revolution. It is. And when we think about revolution, what do we think about? We think about la liberté, guidons le peuple, Eugène Delacroix. This is a revolution, right? Marianne on the battlefront with a rifle in her hand and a flag, right? That's what we think. It comes from nowhere. Suddenly, the people rise up and there is change. But revolution doesn't happen overnight. And what I want to look at is, I want to give a very quick 5-minute view of what makes a revolution, because I then want to use that to think about where are we. You have an original state, and then at the point of the future, you've got the revolution. New things happening in a new way. In the middle, I think we have execution and evolution. The execution, you just do the old thing a bit better. Evolution, You do the old thing in a new way. Let me give you an example of how this looks. You're all too young. I know you're too young. But that's what we had in the 1970s. We didn't have phones. Imagine me in my bedroom with my short trousers on. I'm 11 years old. I'm listening to Top of the Pops. It's fantastic. That's my world. Okay? How do you do that a bit better? You've got a radio, you've got a cassette, you have a boombox. All right? It does everything your radio does, but better. The technology is the same, the behavior is different. You listen to that in your bedroom, you take this out in the park with your mates, everyone's listening to the same music together. It's more social. So what then happens is the chairman of Sony says, I am so tired of listening to these kids in the park. They won't shut up. He gives a cassette to his engineers. He says, guys, please, build me a machine around this cassette that people can listen to by themselves. And so the Sony Walkman is born. Same technology, it's got a radio, it's got a cassette player, but the behavior is different. Now it's portable, like the boombox, but it's personal. What happens next? Obviously, the final thing, we're doing a new thing in a new way. It is the iPod. Now, this is quite a long period. This is 30 years of revolution, right? It's taking us from one thing to another. It's a true revolution. To get to the iPod, lots of things need to be in place. You need to have different infrastructure. You need to have the World Wide Web or you have no iPod. You need to have the technology and you need to have the behavioral change. I don't think you get to people walking around listening to music without the boombox. I just don't think you get there because you don't have that shift to portability. So, that's a very quick Don Taylor view of what makes a revolution. Where are we right now on the whole AI thing? I think today's educational technology and learning technology is about at the boombox level. We're doing everything we already do, but louder. More content. The world doesn't need more content. But that's what AI gives us the power to do. The other thing about this is, think about that 30-year time span. Wow. If that's where we are now, how different are things going to be in the future? I don't know. Except they're going to be very different because we only understand the revolution at the end of it. You couldn't predict the iPod from the standpoint of the boombox. We can't say where we're going with this, but as Armin said earlier, with experimentation, curiosity, and trying things out, we can find our way. All right, so with that as my framework for thinking about it, let's talk about where we are now. So I did this report. It came out in November with Egla Vinauskaite, QR code in the resources section. So if you download the slides, you'll be able to get the link to download this. What we did was we interviewed a bunch of people, we surveyed a bunch of people, we asked them, what are you actually doing with AI? Never mind the people saying the world is going to change, what are you actually doing right now? And the answer is, not quite as much as all the gurus are saying. Everyone's talking about big change, the change is happening more slowly. So we had 185 people answering it, we had 33 people in what I call key roles. A key role is someone who's in charge of a large L&D department in a large organization. If you look at the stats, non-profits and companies, about 60% of these companies responding were employers. So some were vendors, some were freelancers, but most of them were employers. All right, so what did they say? We asked one question about, what are you doing? What are you doing with AI? It had 6 responses, but the 6 responses fell into 2 groups. Either you were doing nothing, or you were exploring it, or you were doing something. And we're going to have two bars here. One bar is from the employers. The other is everybody else, the vendors, the freelancers. So what are people doing? Look at the blue bar. That's the employers. That's the people who have learning and development departments. 45% of the people who responded to the survey, and remember, this is a voluntary survey. These are people who are already interested in AI. They're coming to the survey. 45% of those people were doing nothing or were just exploring it. That's after 1 year of ChatGPT. That is a very, very, very slow start. So the good news here is, hey, don't worry about missing the boat because nobody is doing very much at the moment. Then we said to them, okay, but if you do use AI, what do you think you will get from it? And we gave them a list of things to choose from. Well, understandably, most people said, hey, we'll be able to create more content faster. That is a classic boombox answer. Yes, I can make my music louder, even if nobody else wants to hear it. I'm going to produce more content. It's interesting that personalization is number 3 on this survey, okay? So when I do the Global Sentiment Survey this year, the results will be out in the middle of February. But I can tell you that number 1, of course, is AI. Everything else is pushed down on the list of options. But two things that everyone's talking about this year internationally. One is personalization. The other one is data and analytics. So those things are holding up. So what we can expect this year probably is more people looking at content and looking at personalization. There's a lot of talk about skills. Skills are crucial. But interestingly, identifying skills is really low down on the list that people expect to use AI for. Not even that they're using it for. They're not even thinking about it at the moment. I think that will change this year, but it's interesting it's so low down. And by the way, when we look at efficiency, I was expecting people to say, oh, yes, I'm using AI to summarize emails, to write reports for me, and so on. But if you do a word cloud of all the answers to this question, improving efficiency for most people in L&D, what does it mean? It means I do the same thing louder. I do more content generation with ChatGPT. So that is telling me that most people in learning development are seeing our roles and our job as being to produce and share content. It's not our job. Our job is empowering people, as Armand said. Our job is helping individuals and organizations flourish. That's the challenge I'm going to come to at the end for us. So the use at the moment and the sentiment around AI in L&D, my co-author Egla Vinauskaite puts it like this: there are 4 things you could use it for. The vast majority of the interest is around the middle. Okay, I've talked for 15 minutes. That's too much. I want you very quickly to turn to the person next to you and answer this question. If there is one thing that is stopping you using AI, or one thing you're concerned about, what is it? You've got to find one word. I'm having a drink of water. You're finding one word. You've got 30 seconds. Go. Okay. Okay. That's 30 seconds. We've got to keep going. Okay, very quickly. What's our barrier? What barrier do we have? One word. One word.
Truth.
Sorry, can we have, Marius, can we have the volume up, please?
Truth. Truth.
Truth. What a great answer. Truth. Anybody else got one word? Yes. Got one.
Time.
Time. Truth and time. I feel like I'm in a sort of psychic condensed. These are such good answers. You wouldn't get that from an English audience. So we'd have boring answers. Truth and time, like liberté, fraternité, and truth and time. What's our third word? Third word? Anybody? Come on. We have the third. Go on, go on.
Understanding.
All right. We have a motto for the future. Truth, time, and understanding. No, but these are good. These are good barriers. These are real issues. Oh, go on, a fourth word. Go on, quickly.
Fear.
Oh, and fear. Yes, we have nothing to fear but fear itself, as Who said we have nothing to fear but fear itself? Roosevelt, American president during the Great Depression. Thank you, yes. So, where do these fears come from? We have fears about, can we understand what we're doing? Does it understand us too much? We have fears around truth. Is this real, what we're getting? Do we have enough time to look into this? No, because we're so busy doing the day job. Whenever, in 20 years, whenever I've asked people in learning and development, how are you doing? Nobody has ever said, thanks, Don, I've got all the money and all the time I need. No, we're all maxed out, and now we've got to learn a whole new area as well, all right? These are all legitimate issues. Your fears, your concerns, the barriers around it are echoed by the survey. There are 3 types of barriers: technology, business, and individual barriers. But essentially what they come down to, again, this word cloud here, is this, I think, that it comes down to a lack of time and a concern about the truth. And that's where the fear comes from. And I think this is really stopping deployment, because people know we can do great things, but the fear is we could do something catastrophically wrong and release sensitive company data onto the internet. It won't happen if you do it right. It is quite possible to play with things securely. Let's talk about the applications of AI in L&D for 2024. By the way, everybody, I just want to say thank you very much for coming along to this exhibition, coming along today. You're investing a day or 2 days in yourselves. Most people in learning and development aren't doing that. Most people are carrying on pretending everything hasn't changed. It has. So kudos to you for being here. Right. I want to look at 3 things that I think are happening with that you'll hear about. 3 things you'll hear about with AI in L&D this year. Sorry, let's look at them. Improved efficiency, coaching, and skills-based organizations. You've heard about these words before. Let's look into them in some detail. Improved efficiency. I don't mean how to produce content better. Of course you can. What I mean is things like improved efficiency for the people you're serving in the workplace. If you don't follow Ethan Mollick already on LinkedIn, you absolutely should. He's one of the 24 people I suggest you follow at the end of this presentation. Ethan Mollick spends his life looking at AI. Last October, he said, I can't keep up. So even he can't keep up with everything that's happening. He points out that the co-pilots already embedded in Microsoft 365 are going to make the life of all the people in your organization easier. Well, if that's happening, what's our job? If our job used to be helping people use Word better, and that used to be my job a long time ago, that isn't a job anymore. Because almost certainly, Microsoft can do it faster and more accurately. Not only that, but you can get personal GPTs and other support tools that produce a series of prompts that will manage a great deal of the workload that managers used to do. Here are 2 documents, combine them together, create a 3rd document summary, and an email from that, and send it to somebody. That can all be done now in minutes. If people can do that without any training, or with minimal training, the role of learning development shifts. The exciting thing about this is that if these things are embedded in what we do, but the exciting thing is you can produce your own GPTs, and I know you know about this, you can produce your own GPT. This was launched back in October, where you give it some data, and you can then use that as a colleague or a repository of knowledge. So I thought I would try this out when it came out. I didn't know how to do it. I just went to GPT. I subscribed $20 a month to version 4 on OpenAI. I asked it, how do I create a GPT? It gave me the answer very quickly. I thought, that's interesting. I'll upload my book, Learning Technologies in the Workplace. I found the book, I uploaded it. I asked it the question, all right, how do I implement a learning technology? It gave me a 7-point answer. My mind was blown. It took me a year to write this book. Suddenly, I can ask it questions. It can come back to me with answers without any difficulty. I suddenly felt like I was redundant. So, sorry, I should explain. This is Sally Ann Moore, who was supposed to introduce me, and she's only 23 minutes late. Sally, Okay. So initially, my mind is blown. What happens next? I look at this list. It's got 7 points on it. That's a bit interesting because my very careful process has 6 steps in it. Why has it got 7 steps? Well, I look at it and I say, oh, well, look at number 2 is the APA model. I'll ask it, right, what does the APA model stand for? APPA. It's obviously an acronym. What does APA mean? And I ask it, what is the APA model? It gives me a coherent answer that doesn't say what APPA stands for. Why not? I go back to the book. The book says this. At no point in the book do I say A stands for A, P stands for people, the second P stands for perspective. So because I don't spell it out, the GPT doesn't understand it. So suddenly I'm thinking, all right, you're not so clever, are you, after all? I'm feeling a bit better about myself. So finally I say, I've got my 6-step model. That's an easy one. I'll ask it, what are the 6 steps? It comes back with 8 steps. 8 steps for my model. Why is that? Because my 6 steps are in a diagram. So it doesn't get it. The tool is still useful. It is still super powerful, but it doesn't do what an expert would do. It is regurgitating the text very cleverly. My clock tells me I've got 4.5 minutes left. I'm going to push through the rest of these things quite quickly. Coaching. Coaching and AI is going to be big news now. It has been actually since about 2018. I've been tracking this for a while. We can expect people to be talking about this a lot this year. Expect a lot of people to be talking on this far side. Hey, you can get a completely automated coach. It requires no human intervention. Maybe that will work if it's for performance support. But if it's for anything else, I think that's dangerous. I would always keep a human in the loop somewhere in the middle of this spectrum. Watch out for coaching this year. It's going to be a super hot topic because it's something that AI is perfect for. There's also the potential for disasters. If people develop a relationship with the coach, which it happens, or if people take advice seriously, which is bad. It comes back to this question of truth. Is our GPT right? Is that a revolution? Yeah, that actually is getting close to being a revolution if it's done right. Skills-based talent organizations, you've heard about this a lot. We've been talking about it for years. We had competencies in the 80s and 90s and 2000s. Then they went away, but they're back because of the power of AI. I'm going to build a diagram very quickly. We're going to start off with aligning job profiles to skills dictionaries. So we know what skills the jobs we have need. What do we need? Then we look at individuals' data. All right, what do we have? So we know what we need, we know what we have. Put those together, we've got a skills database. We know what we need, what we have, and what the gap is. Put the learning systems into it, and suddenly you've got what we need, what we have, and the solutions that can get us across that gap. Put them all together, and you have an organizational skills database. If you add in the HR systems, it's really important that your HR systems are incorporated because that tells you the relationships between people in the organization. So you get all your information about your skills, your data, you put it together with the HR, and you have an organizational skills database. But then what happens is that information comes back into HR, and once you've got your HR systems running off skills data, suddenly you have a skills-based organization. Recruiting, training, performance management, succession planning, team formation, expert finding, everything becomes easier. It's a huge promise. You'll hear a lot of people talking about it. I have stood on the stage at Learning Technologies for a long time hearing about the great future. This will be a revolution if it happens. I'm skeptical that it can happen as comprehensively as we've been told. It's close, though, to being a revolution for sure. Here are my final thoughts that I want to wrap up on. And actually, if you were in here for Armin's presentation, you've already seen some of these, because he stole them off me. AI is the worst today it will ever be. So, no, it's not perfect, but it's a lot better this year than it was last year. Don't panic. Most people aren't doing anything, but do start. The train is leaving the station. The tools have changed, the role hasn't. Our role remains empowering people, and people are more important than ever. We have to reimagine ourselves. We are not course producers and providers. We are change agents for the organization, and we have to step up to that role. And finally, technology always begins as a differentiator, but it ends as a commodity. Whether it's planes or bombs, whatever, what starts as a lead, people catch up. The thing that makes the difference is always people. That's why we are so important now. That's why, to use Armin's word, the time for L&D is now. That was long, that was fast, apologies. That's me on LinkedIn, and that's those slides, so you can download them and read them at more leisure than I just rattled through them. Thank you very much for listening so patiently. My timer has just hit 0. Thank you. I will say this very quickly. Look, my job, I've been around for a long time. I know it doesn't look like it, but I have. I am here to serve you. If you've got questions, follow, link in, ask me a question, disagree with me, by all means. But let me support you in this exciting future we've got. I wish I was 20. It's such a great time to be in our field. Thank you very much. Sorry, I don't think we've got time for questions. I'm sorry. Merci.